Well, as I mentioned, I made a series of films about people and life in Brooklyn that has smattering of Yiddish and a kind of with people that spoke Yiddish. And then mostly it plays in a novel that I wrote where there's a Jewish grandmother that seems to pepper the main character's life with Yiddishes, like critical Yiddishism, that's sort of semi-related to my family. And there's probably other things I can't think of now, periods where I've gone back into Yiddish and looking at Yiddish films.
And what is the reception to the use of Yiddish in your work?
Well, that's hard to separate out from the reception of the work. Like, I really like my film Directing Grandma. It's a little bit intense and willfully so. I mean, the history of that film is I'm going to veer off for a minute, but the history of that film is that I wanted to capture grandma's what I thought of as kind of Yiddish related Jewish movements, like lighting the Shabbos candles. And so I went with a black and white camera to film her. And the amazing thing is I brought a really dumb little recorder, a cassette, and pushed it when I went to film. And then filmed all of these beautiful images. So the second film, Snow Day, you see them with no audio, which was the intention. But when I 10 years later found that tape, I was just there, screaming at this like old lady trying, being a tough director. And it was so shocking to hear, what I was doing to get the film. Of course, I edited it much worse than it really was. I edited it to highlight that. So some people think it's like brutal that I was directing her that way. But what it was like crushingly loving. And I played that up in the film.
Ready? I'm going to start shooting. Grandma, you're not turning. That's it. Stop. Don't move. Don't move. No, don't move. Now, I'm shooting. Look at the distant dog. And watch him run across the field. Keep watching him.
Well, I went out the fire escape and I put her in the window. And a little of that film was filmed before Grandpa passed away. But then a lot of it was after Grandpa passed away and she was just devastated. So that's a little hard to watch because I'm trying to draw her out of this mourning mood. And she's like, get out of here. That's a pretty good imitation. And that's it. I was trying to direct her to do these things, but it was very hard to communicate those things to her. And the one that's the most badgering is when I just wanted her to like sweep her eyes across like this. And it's interesting when somebody is from another place with another language, like how to tell them in the right words. So I kept saying, watch the distant dog. I said, like, Grandma, there's a dog running across the field, and watch the dog. Of course, she's like, I don't see a dog. It was so miscommunicated. And I kept saying it. It was so, it was very poignant. I know, I'm not sure what I'm getting. I'm remembering now being in the window and communicating with Grandma was what I was doing. I wasn't just making a film. I was making a person be connected to life when they'd lost their 60-year-long life partner. It was kind of brutal and funny. So the reception to that is really interesting. Like, I've had big audiences gagging, and they come out of that just saying it's like every culture says it's just like their grandparents. And then I've had, maybe like classes that I've shown it in where maybe the kids are very removed from Jewish culture, like maybe largely Asian, and there's like zero reaction. But the best reactions was like a very large audience laughing their head off and really getting the double-edged thing, which is completely loving something you don't have, you won't have. It's like kind of gone, and maybe you had it and were lucky enough to have it. And that has to do with the Yiddish too, because a lot of the people that see it had some language, whether they were Egyptian. Somebody in their family spoke something that is remote to them now. So there's just something about it that I think is timeless for anybody and that one can appreciate with Yiddish. But I wish there were more Yiddish in that film. And then the second film, the last film, which is really not supposed to be a part of the trilogy, where I threw all this footage of the people together, there's footage of me filming her. And I'm laughing and she's laughing. It was funny because I gave her the camera in That's How the Time Went Away. Well, that's the one with a lot of Yiddish. In that one, I got all the older people together just before they died, like Grandma, Grandpa, Grandpa's brother Willie, Grandpa's brother Joe, and Aunt Pearl. And then they were like all, screaming at me to stop the film at one point. And then they were screaming in Yiddish, like, stop the film. It was just, I just feel lucky to have been alive for that and interested in film at the moment that I made those films. But I don't know that I answered your question.